Thank you. I want to call to order the Tuesday, May 8th Town Council meeting for the town of Mount Pleasant. We are where we said we would be when we said we would be here. It's good to see everybody here. And what a beautiful day in Mount Pleasant. I mean, it's just an absolutely beautiful day, and we will get through as quickly as we can and enjoy this evening. But first, let's start off with a prayer by Chaplain Judith Ewing, followed by a pledge led by Mayor Pro Tem Gary Santos.
Please bow your heads. Almighty God, send down upon those who hold office in this city of Mount Pleasant the spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice, that with steadfast purpose they may faithfully serve in their offices to promote the well-being of all people. Fill each person here today with a determination to do what is right for this special place we all call home, especially be with our Mayor, Will Haney, and also with the Reverend Rob Dewey, who has served the East Cooper area with love and compassion for so many years and will be honored today. Finally, teach your people to rely on your strength and to accept their responsibilities to their fellow citizens, that they may support trustworthy leaders who will make wise decisions for the well-being of our society, so that we may serve you faithfully in our generation and honor your holy name. For yours is the kingdom, O Lord, and you are exalted as head above all. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 3 on our agenda is compliance with the Freedom of Information Act. Mr. Pagliarini, are we in compliance?
Yes, Mayor, we're in compliance.
Thank you very much. Item number 4 is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion that we approve the agenda as published?
So move.
You good? Okay. We have a motion and we have a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor of approval of the agenda as published, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. The agenda is approved. This moves us to item 5, public hearings, awards, and presentations. I will turn it over to Town Administrator, Mr. Eric DeMora.
Thank you, Mayor. If you and council would join me out front, please. Okay, good evening. Our first item tonight is the presentation of the 2017 National Service and Sacrifice Award to the Low Country Community Chaplaincy, and we are pleased to be joined tonight by Dr. Rosalie Wyatt. Dr. Wyatt, if you would come up and join me. Dr. Wyatt is President, Corporate Crisis Response Officers Association, and National Director of its Ready Communities Partnership. So if you would, Dr. Wyatt, would you go ahead?
Yes, thank you, sir. Yes. Good evening, everyone. Mayor Haney and distinguished members of the Mount Pleasant Town Council. Again, my name is Dr. Rosalie J. Wyatt, and it is my privilege to represent CROA and the Ready Communities Partnership Initiative here in your council chambers and to present a National Service and Sacrifice Award to Reverend Rob Dewey of the Low Country Community Chaplaincy. Since 2006, CROA and the Ready Communities Partnership has engaged Charleston area public, private, and community stakeholders in a critical mission to reinforce, if not augment America's response capacity at the local level in the first 72 hours of a large-scale or national crisis. Again, today we are here to recognize Reverend Rob Dewey with the National Service and Sacrifice Award for Community Ministering in Crisis. Rob has served his community, as you know, for over 3 decades through ministry, and crisis counseling for victims, responders, and their families. He envisioned a ministry that other community leaders and stakeholders grew to recognize and would eventually integrate across the Charleston area's response to crises. Today, he moves forward to further develop the ministry and crisis counseling services for corporate leaders impacted by natural disaster, attack, or other threats. By recognizing Rob and the Low Country Community Chaplaincy with a National Service Award, we are also pausing to recognize each and every one of America's responders across our nation, career, volunteer, and civilian, for their invaluable contributions to community and national resiliency in the United States of America. Rob, please come forward to accept this award for your service and dedication to ministering in crisis.
Okay, excellent. The next item on the agenda, we're very fortunate and proud that the town of Mount Pleasant has been recognized by Hermes for some creativity awards. And I have to tell you that our communications manager, Martine Wolf-Miller, who you all know, has been instrumental in the town upping its game to be in a position to win these awards. So I find it only fitting that she come forward and present these awards. Martine?
Thank you, Mr. Demore. Mr. Mayor and members of Town Council, ladies and gentlemen, and distinguished guests, it is an honor to be here today to announce the winners of the 2018 Hermes Creative Awards. The Hermes Creative Awards is an international competition for creative professionals involved in the concept, writing, and design of traditional communications, materials, and emerging technologies. The awards are administered and judged by the Association of Marketing and Communications Professionals, an organization rewarding outstanding achievement and service to the profession. At this time, I would like to announce that the Business and Tourism Office was recognized with a Platinum Award in the Print Media category for the 2017 Town of Mount Pleasant Annual Report. Accepting on behalf of the Mount Pleasant Business and Tourism Office is Amy Livingston, Business and Tourism Manager. Thank you, Amy. The Communications Office was recognized with a Gold Award in the Electronic Media category for the Town of Mount Pleasant Municipal website. Accepting on behalf of the Communications Office is Markwell Coxon, our Assistant Communications Manager. The Recreation Department was recognized with 2 Gold Awards in the Print Media category. The Traffic Box Art Program and the In Motion magazine. Accepting for the Traffic Box Art Program is Brian Romano Montiero, Culture, Arts, and Pride Commission Vice Chair. Also accepting for the In Motion magazine are Steve Gerg, Recreation Director. Steve. Our Recreation Marketing Coordinator. At this time, I would like to ask you to please join me in congratulating this year's Hermes Creative Awards winners. And then we're going to
Okay, next item is a recognition of two very special employees who have been here a considerable amount of time and have served the organization very well. Our first employee is in the Public Services Department, and Mr. Peel will lead us in that.
It's my pleasure to recognize Troy Jenkins for 25 years of service. Troy started as a laborer in the Facilities and Ground Division in 1993. He was promoted to a crew leader in July of '94. In March of 2009, he was promoted to a foreman. He currently serves as a foreman in the Facilities and Grounds Division. Troy is a man of many talents. He is one of the hardest working men in the department, who is incredibly reliable, can always be counted on to help whenever needed, no matter the job. If Troy is involved, I know we'll get done right. Troy is responsible for leading and managing the facilities and events technicians that clean and maintain the town buildings. He also serves as a lead for Public Service Department support to all special events, which include the Farmers Market, Concert in the Park, Movies in the Park, Children's Day, the Blessing of the Fleet, the Christmas Market, the Christmas Parade, and the Cripper River Bridge Run. Because of Troy's efforts leading up to, during, and after these events, they always come off without a hitch. I'm pretty sure Nicole Harvey might have a heart attack if Troy weren't available for one of her events. Troy is a vital part of the Public Service Department. He does all that is asked of him and more, and he does it with a smile on his face. Troy constantly strives to make a difference in the town. Troy, congratulations on 25 years of service. The town is fortunate to have you as an employee.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I have the honor of recognizing one of our employees for 25 years, Ms. April Kalunga. If you'll please come up. Thank you. April started with the police department on May 3rd, 1993 as a dispatcher, responsible for taking all emergency and non-emergency calls and relaying to the officers on the road for the appropriate response. During her time as a dispatcher, she was always aware of where her officers were and would continually check their status when on the more serious calls or traffic stops. If she sensed there was a problem or they weren't answering on the radio in a timely manner, she would send additional officers without being told to do so to go check on them at their last known location. Believe me, as a police officer, it's always nice to have that lifeline of somebody looking out for you when you're out there. Over her 20-plus years serving as a dispatcher, she has assisted and talked to countless callers through life-threatening emergencies, those who had become distraught, contemplating suicide, to that citizen who was simply lost and needed directions. Like police officers, when we were hunkering down, preparing for hurricanes, they stayed too. We had to have folks here to dispatch calls, handle those emergency calls as they came in, even when her own home was recognizing maybe some damage and some things going on in her area. There is no doubt she has positively impacted many over the years, including citizens and officers. In November of 1996, April was promoted to shift coordinator with the responsibility of supervising, training, and developing those who worked beneath her. When the town went to consolidated dispatch in 2013, fortunately, April chose to stay with the town. She took a position as duty officer and presently is our terminal agency coordinating officer, or TAC, and some mouthfuls saying the other. The duties and responsibilities of this position are many. She's responsible for assuring all officers and employees accessing the National Crime Information Center database are properly trained and vetted before gaining access to the sensitive data. She ensures all records are properly updated, validated, and entered in accordance with FBI procedures. If any of y'all know anything about police work, if we didn't have access to our NCIC, it's so crucial to checking on warrants and wanted and tags when we're in the field. And if she wasn't doing this job to make sure everything was being properly followed, practices and policies were being adhered to, we would risk losing that such vital tool that we have out there. Her 25 years of service is certainly appreciated by me, and I know all of our citizens, and I appreciate all you do, and congratulations on 25. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. It's an honor for me to recognize in front of you our employees of the month. So if I may, if I could have Sergeants Salata and Winstead, Detectives Ballantyne, Buono, and Good, SPO Harper, Detectives Ivy, Jenkins, and Stevenson, please come forward.
Half and half. One side, half on the other, I think.
Hey, we got him. Okay, well, good. Well, as you very well know, Mayor and Council, on April 4th, we had a horrific incident at Tavern and Table Restaurant. So much so that the manager on duty was shot in the back by the suspect. And so immediately, our team here in the police department went to work, and through some solid detective work that includes investigating the crime scene, electronic analysis, good old-fashioned interviewing suspects, they were able to locate and determine who the individuals were who were responsible. They've been arrested, and what has happened now is, because of their work, I think the community's sense of security has been restored. And for the victims, their families, there's some justice and peace knowing that these two individuals are behind bars. And so for their good work, for their dedication and professionalism, they are in front of you tonight as our employees of the month.
Mayor, come on up.
Y'all come shake everybody's hand.
Appreciate it. Good job.
One last surprise. If Chief, you could come forward for a second.
This one or that one?
What's that? You?
Okay.
All right. What I wanted to, and Mayor and Council, you may want to come forward and look at these photos. It is, that's right. Your police chief, Carl Ritchie, has completed 30 years of law enforcement duty, and it just happened just a few days back. And he made the mistake of sharing these photos with me. And I'm not sure whether we should congratulate him on his years of service or for finally getting rid of that mustache. But
Coming back.
if I could, thank you, Chief, for 30 years of service.
If council will stay up here, we have one thing tonight that is, I guess, technically a violation of open meeting rules. I have a little surprise for our council members tonight. And we tried to figure out how to sneak it on the agenda, but there would be so many questions we couldn't do it. So we're just going to do this. But as part of our effort for Mount Pleasant to grow into the city, the community that it is, it will always be the town, but it's 85,000 people. I wanted for us to have something that's from our people, not from me, but from our people to council members, to signify the trust they have put in you and the oath that you have taken to serve them. So we have these new lapel pins that say council member with the town logo on it that only council members have. You have to be elected by the people and sworn to this office to wear this. It'll look great on your lapel. Mine looks good on my pajamas at home. Not really. But just wear this as you see fit, but at events and things, and it distinguishes you as a leader of the town of Mount Pleasant in whom the people and I have great trust. So I would like to present them to everybody. How about ladies first? Got a few lapel pins going on. That's good. I thought I handed you one. Thank you so much. And as you see your elected officials wearing this, it will remind you of the trust you have placed in them and the oath they have taken to serve you. So enjoy. Thank you. Finished item 5. This moves us to item 6, approval of the minutes from the April 10, 2018 Town Council meeting and the April 2018 financial statement. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes and the financial statements signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. The motion is passed. Item 7 on the agenda is correspondence and public statements. Mr. DeMore.
Thank you, Mayor. The first speaker I have signed up is Teresa Green. Ms. Green?
Good evening. I'm a member of the Charleston Area Justice Ministry. I moved to Mount Pleasant 12 years ago with my husband from Michigan. When we were looking for homes, what attracted us was the natural beauty and the diversity of the people living here in Mount Pleasant. Also, it wasn't overcrowded with homes, apartments, and businesses. It was easy for me to travel from my neighborhood to most places very easily. I live in the Ion community. I voted for you, Mayor Haney, because you shared my vision of Mount Pleasant that focused on livability and families. I heard your message, and I agreed with you. What has happened, in addition to all the construction, is the fact that so many people that I know, teachers, firefighters, police officers, hospitality workers, are no longer able to live in the place where they work. People that have lived here their entire lives are unable to do so now because of the high cost of housing. More than 211,000 people are facing a housing crisis. What does it say about a region when a majority of people can't afford a roof over their head? What values are reflected in a community where the costs of basic needs like housing skyrocket while wages fail to keep up? The 2014 Housing Needs Assessment from the City of Charleston, North Charleston, the town of Mount Pleasant, and county stated, if the housing issues facing the region are ignored. Residents will continue to migrate to the outskirts of the region. This has happened to our community. This is the cause of the traffic congestion. 18,000 people, believe it or not, commute to Mount Pleasant daily because they cannot afford to live here.
Ms. Green, would you please finish?
This is why many of our workers have long commute times. We need to approach this from a regional perspective because this is a regional problem. Mayor Haney and members of council, I urge you to meet with the Charleston Area Justice Ministry and other allies to take concrete steps to solve this problem from a regional perspective. Thank you very much.
John Wright.
Distinguished Mr. Mayor, council members, I want to get an opportunity to talk to you about an issue that I think you are most familiar with. In the Reynolds Point community, there's an issue with a piece of property that's currently been given to the East Cooper Land Trust. And there's an easement on the property, and they desire to not turn the property back over to the Reynolds Point community. Well, I want to speak about that simply because in my research, I realized that back in 2002, there was this Open Space Foundation, and then in 2009, there was this Mount Pleasant Conservancy, and then 2013 became East Cooper Land Trust. Well, Reynolds Point as a community was annexed into the town back in 1982, way before Hurricane Hugo, way before the influx of all this the new build-out. And for that community to be facing the issue with not being able to get back land that's a part of their community, I think that sends a bad message. And I'm hoping that council, mayor and council, you guys will get an opportunity to take a look at this issue because the community only deserves it. There are communities Midwest and then out west that establish community benefits agreement. And those benefit agreements are allowing those communities to do exactly what the Reynolds Point community is trying to do. So I urge you to take a look at that issue as it relates to that park, that proposed park and the property in Reynolds Point. And let's come to, let's resolve that. I think the community only deserves it. They've been around since the 1870s. And for the record, my name is John Wright. I live at 145 Rose Lane. Thank you.
Becky Van Wee.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. My name is Becky Van Wee, and I live at 270 North Shellmore Boulevard. I want to thank all of you for your service on behalf of those of us who are lucky enough to live in Mount Pleasant. And living in Mount Pleasant is exactly what I'm here to talk about. I belong, as does Teresa Green, to the organization called Charleston Area Justice Ministry, or CAJM for short. And to piggyback on what Teresa said, I don't think any of us needs to be convinced that the problem of not enough affordable housing is real. What CAJM is advocating is a regional approach to solve the problem. And I'm here this evening to urge Mount Pleasant, the town council, and citizens and other official municipal organizations to support and collaborate with CAJM. What CAJM is proposing is a affordable housing trust fund. What a trust fund does is provide money that's dedicated to this problem, but it also serves as a resource to leverage other funds. I think you all know what leverage means, and we have evidence to suggest that this works quite well in other communities. For example, in Louisville, Kentucky, they've had great success with a $1,000 investment in their housing trust fund. They leverage that for affordable housing to $9.7 million. So it works. The average leveraging amount is for every dollar, it's $8.50 that gets attracted. So again, I urge you to please get involved with the establishment of an affordable housing trust fund. Thank you so much.
Edward Lee.
evening, Mr. Mayor and council members.
Good evening.
I want to talk a little bit about the property on Mathis Ferry Road also. I think you have a piece of correspondence or a letter that was sent to all council members, and I'm available if you want to ask questions. To add a little more to what Johnny just said, I don't know if you know the history of Remley's Point, but it is a fact that Remley's Point and Lincolnville have the highest count of properties that have dual ownership on them. So property ownership in Remley's Point has always been a contentious issue. The town recognized that when they tried to get, well, when they did get the property for the purpose of locating the fire station there. Years ago, the fire station that is on 7th Avenue was proposed to be on this piece of property. When they got so many protests from Molasses Creek, then they changed the location to 7th Avenue site. After that, the church, Holy Trinity, which is immediately in front of the piece of property, tried to negotiate with the town to get the property as a park. I don't know what happened to those negotiations. The pastor's here. But after that, the town gave the property to the East Cooper Land Trust and did not even approach the community with their intentions of giving it to the land trust. So we would ask that you use any influence that you have, any means that you have, to try to return the property to the Scanlonville community. Thank you.
Andrea McManus.
Who owned the property in the beginning?
Good evening. My name is Andrea McManus. I live at 3325 Stockdale Street in Park West in Mount Pleasant. And I'm here today to talk about my neighborhood, the Abbey, which is the first neighborhood right there in more of the commercial side of Park West. This land was initially marked as commercial property and eventually turned into residential. This was not conveyed to us when we bought our property. Therefore, the streets that surround our neighborhood are still considered commercial and not eligible for the traffic calming program. Our streets are not long enough. But what I'm here to tell you today is we have about 30 children that live in about 41 houses in the Abbey, and they are all under the age of about 12 years old, playing in the neighborhood. It's a great neighborhood. I love it, but I am super concerned with the students that are driving to Wando in the morning and leaving Wando in the evenings. They are speeding down Salterbeck and on Stockdale Street, 60 plus miles an hour. And we've requested speed bumps on Salterbeck, and we're told we're not eligible for them because the street is not long enough. And so I urge you to reconsider the eligibility requirements lengthwise of streets so that we are able to get a speed bump on Salterbeck, because I would hate to have a kid in our neighborhood struck by a car. And we need law enforcement to be sitting on those streets. I've called about that. I called today to make sure that we are giving people tickets that are speeding down those streets. It's not safe. So I just wanted to make everyone aware. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Is that it? Yes. Was there anyone that had anything for correspondence and public statements who did not have an opportunity to sign up? We will give you an opportunity. Yes? Okay. Yep. Come on up. You have 2 minutes. Name and address.
Thank you.
And just making sure, this is for the general section. Did you sign up for a particular?
No.
Go right ahead. That's yours.
I'm Luann Rosenzweig. I have lived here in Mount Pleasant since 1991. I'm also a member of the Charleston Area Justice Ministry. Last year, CAJM members voted to address the critical need for affordable housing in our community. I was thrilled with this selection as it affects me personally. My adult son, who is 29 and works almost full-time at the local Publix, still lives at home as he cannot afford to live on his own in Mount Pleasant. Many of his coworkers in their late 20s or 30s also live with relatives or have several roommates. A minimum wage worker would need to work 110 hours per week to afford a basic 2-bedroom apartment in our area. That's 16 hours each day. People working in Mount Pleasant can't afford to live here. Many of the employees at this Publix where my son works live in North Charleston, Somerville, or even Goose Creek. In the 4 years he has worked there, he has seen many great employees leave as they find employment closer to their homes. This exodus of good employees is also happening at Wando High School, which has one of the higher turnover rates for teachers in the area. Councilmember O'Rourke, today you were quoted in the Post and Courier asking, what kind of town do we want to be? That's a question we should all keep in mind. I, for one, want a town that values diversity and welcomes all levels of workers as community members. I urge all of you to support KJM's housing plan. I would like to personally thank Councilmember Whitley for coming to our Nehemiah Action, where nearly 1,700 community members gathered.
Ma'am, please finish up.
We thank Councilmember Whitley for supporting the Housing Action Plan and taking steps to address this housing crisis from a regional perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that concludes item 7 on the agenda, correspondence and public statements, which brings us to item 8, planning, and I will turn that over to Mr. Ulma. Jeff?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Your first item under new business is a first reading of an ordinance to rezone 2 parcels of land on Benning Road located at 1124 and 1126. The request is for AB2 zoning, and originally the submittal included removal from the Hungry Neck Boulevard Benning Road Overlay District, and I'll mention that in a moment. The property is located here between US 17 and Hungry Neck Road and is on the east side of Benning Road. In the vicinity are a variety of office, commercial, and residential uses. The land use plan future designation is for community conservation. However, when this property was annexed back in 2009, it was already zoned for office and commercial activities in Charleston County. The existing zoning is AB, and nearby county zoning in the unincorporated areas, again the cross-hatched areas, is mostly R4, single-family residential. Our code enforcement staff was made aware and recently investigated this site due to the existence of considerable outdoor storage activities on the property. Those uses require AB2 zoning, along with a special exception approval by our Board of Zoning Appeals. So the property owner was contacted and the request was filed to generate the rezoning and apply the necessary zoning district on this property to be able to continue with the outdoor storage uses. This site is also covered by an overlay, the Hungry Neck Boulevard Benning Road Overlay District. It allows a variety of uses, and originally when the applicants submitted their request, it was to remove the property from this overlay. However, in discussions as they were in front of the Planning Commission, they were satisfied that leaving it in the overlay would be okay, and you'll see that Planning Commission recommended just the change to the AB2 and leaving the overlay in place. And probably the biggest consideration is that the overlay limits commercial buildings to 15,000 square foot maximum. So allowed uses that could be in the area would sort of have a cap on the size or the scale if they were allowed, you know, the commercial or office kinds of uses that are allowed under the AB2. So the Planning Commission recommended approval of the request to AB2 unanimously, but denied the request to remove it from the overlay. And the Planning Committee recommended denial at the meeting last week, 4-0 for this particular request. So Mayor, I'll turn it over to you and answer questions if you have any.
Thank you. Council?
Second.
We have a motion to deny the request, and we have a second. Is there any discussion? Is there anyone from the public here to address this? No, sir. No one signed up? Are we prepared to vote? All in favor of the motion to deny signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. It is denied. Next.
Next item is first reading on an ordinance amendment related to the attendance requirements for our various boards and commissions that are contained and deal with our land development regulations. These changes would require attendance at 75% of all called meetings and explicitly states that expectation that members attend. Attendance would be monitored on a 12-month rolling period beginning at the beginning of each month. So staff assigned to these various boards and commissions would continue to track attendance, and one excused absence is not counted towards that requirement of 75%.
Motion to approve?
We have a motion to approve and a second. Is there any I don't know. Who was the second? Mr. Bustos? In discussion, I will say that for the members of the public, you may not be aware, we just wanted to make sure that if you get appointed to a board or commission and are taking the place of another willing citizen, that you actually show up and vote and participate. And we went through this over a while, and it's taken us a while to get to this point, but we think we have a reasonable expectation that you will show up and vote if you do that. And as far as I know, all of our boards and commissions have supported this as well. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimous.
First reading, ordinance number 18035, an ordinance to amend Chapter 32, Section 32.23, Chapter 150, Section 150.003, Chapter 156, Sections 156.400, 156.410, 156.420, 156.430, and 156.441 of the Town of Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinances related to attendance requirements for appointed boards and commissions.
Thank you. Item number 3, please.
3 is first reading on a annexation request at 1108 Graddick Road.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to
Yes.
make a motion that we approve annexations for item 3, item 4, and item 5, if there's no objection.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve and we have a second. Is there any discussion of these annexation items, or is there anyone here from the public to address?
There was
Yes,
one
sir.
person signed up to speak. Mayor, gentleman Ian Bowers.
Does anyone have any questions? Yes, Mr. Bremer.
Since we're taking these all together, Jeff, if this passes and all 3 of these are annexed in, what zoning do they come in as?
Let's see, this one at 1108 would be assigned R1, low-density residential, under our zoning code. And the next one would be community conservation, Annie Laura Lane. So that would have a community conservation designation, and I believe the third one does as well.
And do all those zoning designations, are they compliant with our comprehensive plan?
Some match, a couple of them, I think a couple of them match. I'd have to double check again. Let's see, Graddick Road, comprehensive plan recommends commercial land uses, so going to R1 would not match what the plan designation is.
Okay.
I believe the other 2 are in conformance with the plan.
So as I stated in the planning committee meeting, I've come to the realization that it doesn't make much sense to us to annex property in with a zoning that conflicts with our comprehensive plan. I'll actually be addressing this issue in planning committee next month to try to bring that into agreement. But I'm not going to support this motion for these 3 annexations because there is that conflict between our comprehensive plan and what's being proposed.
Understood. Any other discussion? Are we prepared to vote? The motion is to approve items 3, 4, and 5, which address annexation of the properties as listed. All in favor of the motion to approve signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
No. Motion is approved.
First reading, ordinance number 18036, an ordinance providing for the annexation of approximately .53 acre tract of land located at 1108 Braddock Road, identified by TMS number 559-0000176, and depicted on a plat recorded by Charleston County ROD Office in Plat Book S08, page 101. First reading, ordinance number 18037, an ordinance providing for the annexation of approximately .5 acre tract of land located at 2162 Annie Laura Lane, identified by TMS number 558-0000381 as Lot 4A on a plat recorded by the Charleston County ROD Office in Plat Book DA, page 633. First reading, ordinance number 18038, an ordinance providing for the annexation of 6 parcels described as approximately 2.41 acres of land known as Hamlin Corner on Hamlin Road, identified by TMS numbers 578-0000058, 578-0000312 through 313, and 578-0000737 through 739, depicted on plats recorded by the ROD Office of Charleston County in books S17, page 91, and book S17, page 136.
Thank you. Very well done. Let's move to item number 6.
Item 6 is an ordinance amendment that involves Chapter 152 of the Town Code, and it relates to flood damage prevention. This is not part of the zoning code, so it does not require hearings, but we did council conducted a public hearing on this ordinance at your meeting last month. This ordinance was also reviewed by the state of South Carolina for compliance with stormwater regulations. And in a nutshell, the amendment reflects the results of prior studies and work in the Old Village looking at drainage, and it's intended to balance new development with concerns about the potential impacts on the drainage system as well as on adjacent properties. And the ordinance will link to a new builder's guide, which has been prepared by our engineering staff that would assist all affected parties in being able to conduct their construction activities using best practices in order to meet these requirements. And the Planning Committee recommended approval of the ordinance 3-0.
Motion to approve?
We have a motion to
Second.
approve, and we have a second. Did you catch the second? You caught it? Is there anyone here to address this from the public? Is there any discussion among council? All right, we'll vote. All in favor of the motion to approve signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes.
First reading, ordinance number 18039, an ordinance to amend sections of Chapter 152, flood damage prevention, and to adopt the Builder's Guide for Stormwater Management in the Old Village Study Area.
Item number 7, please.
Number 7 is first reading on a comprehensive plan amendment for 1236 Melvin Bennett Road. This is associated with a rezoning that is later on your agenda. A public hearing was conducted, or council saw this, I believe, in February. The applicant requested deferral of the plan amendment while they resubmitted a different rezoning request, which you'll see later. Staff made a mistake and omitted this from the agenda last time, so we're bringing it forward as a first reading, and it's trailing the rezoning case that you'll see. And the request would be to designate the northern property, portion of this property, for commercial, which lines up with the request for the AB zoning that the applicant has requested. The Planning Commission recommended approval, and at the time, Planning Committee took no action on the request, and it's since changed in the past few months.
And can we get a clarification, just so there's no confusion of how this is affected by or relates to item 5 under old business? It's the same property, right?
It's the same property. This would do the plan amendment, and then the other relates to the actual zoning designation.
Okay. So what this is on item number 7 is not the actual zoning.
Correct.
Is everybody clear on that?
I make a motion we deny.
We have a motion to deny. Do we have a second? Yes. We have a motion to deny, and we have a second. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Brimmer.
So just a question then, if this motion for denial passes, does that preclude the zoning from changing?
The guidance would be typically that a request would jive and correspond with the plan
designation. So the AB commercial request would not correspond with the residential designation if this request for the commercial land use designation is denied.
So if a denial it passes, then
You could
by
consider
de facto,
that.
the zoning also gets denied, is that correct?
You would have to take separate action on the rezoning request itself, but it would be an indicator of your decision in terms of changing the plan and/or changing the zoning.
Thank you.
All right, so we're still in discussion. I know there's some people here to address this. Are you here to address this as item 7 or as item 5 on the rezoning under old business? Or you could do both. You could do both. So if you'd like to speak now, this would be the time to come speak on this.
Mayor, before they speak, can I ask one question?
You certainly
I'm
may.
not sure you got a definitive answer on your, I think your question's fair. Does that mean if this is denied, then the next item is not brought up?
I think I received sort of a stealth answer from our attorney.
Yeah.
It's not automatically, obviously, there have to be a vote, but I think the question is if you had different results, it would provide a significant problem. I don't know that we'd be able to enforce the zoning change or approve this. I don't think the zoning change can be approved if this is voted.
Wow.
No.
I don't, I find myself in the dark a lot on a lot of things, but this seems like this was handled wrong, quite frankly. It's as if everybody's done all this work and it might not even matter. Whatever, that's just a comment.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think this was a mistake that was made that could be very costly to the neighborhood and their desires. If this is voted down, I think that the applicant should get another chance to come and do it with the town doing things the proper way. I mean, it was an oversight, but it was the town's oversight. So what we're doing is penalizing the applicant for this. And so I don't think we can do this in two parts. So at some point, this needs to come back together. This didn't come to planning committee.
Not again because it was still at the council level.
Yeah, see,
You could defer both items till next month's meeting, and then they would both be at the same point.
yeah, and that,
Is that a possibility?
That's where we are now.
Well, let me just take exception to that. If you want to, first of all, this is first reading. The zoning was approved last month for first reading. The way to get them together, and I'm not suggesting the way you vote, would be to approve this at first reading and then have them together. Because it is first reading. That would be the way to get them to track together.
Yes, Ms. Whitley.
Would be to approve this first reading for this section and then defer till June both items so that they would both be at final.
Item 7, A7.
Yes, ma'am.
But if the council were to vote to deny this, then that indicates that the council would likely vote to deny the rezoning.
You would expect that the votes would be the same.
However, council voted first reading to approve the rezoning on first reading. So, yes, ma'am. Ms. Lanning?
At the risk of showing my naivety as a new member of council, I have asked a lot of questions, read a lot of things, listened to a lot of folks, and including a number of emails. Thank you for everyone who sent those. I would say that this being presented to us almost seems like a surprise to a lot of folks tonight, and the fact that it is where we would have to change the comprehensive plan in itself seems like something that goes against our grain. It is something that was complained about. It's something that a lot of us talked about during campaigns, et cetera. But most of the time, not to say that they're the same, but most of the time it was the opposite. Most of the time it was where something had been zoned a commercial node or something, and we ended up with residential, which created a lot of extra traffic and infrastructure issues. Right. So a lot of us were very concerned about making sure we didn't do any more of that. I don't think this is the same. I think this is a completely different thing, and I think it's kind of maybe something that we do want to try to say we need more time, more discussion, rather than making a decision based purely on comprehensive plan sensitivity.
Mr. Canay.
I just think we need to be careful not to let the process drive this. The merits of the case are there. The applicant's been here 5 times. People aggrieved by it have been here the same. I mean, they're entitled to the hearing. We should just vote on it.
Yes.
I just want to say that, the comprehensive plan, as you know, we have a lot of folks out there looking at this right now to come back to us with ideas, suggestions, recommendations for the comprehensive plan. And I've said this before, I don't think we need to be going changing the comprehensive plan until such time as they give us the full report and we have an opportunity to review it. We've already changed it before, and I just think that we ought to hold off on changing it until such time as we look at and see what they've come up with and their recommendations before we continue to change the plan. So I'll be voting against it because I want to maintain the comprehensive plan.
Yes, Mr. Brewer.
Yeah, I think all of us at one point or another when we ran, we talked about the value of the comprehensive plan and how important it is to stick to it. When you become familiar with the comprehensive plan in depth, what you realize is that it's a guide for development, but there are circumstances where it is better for the community to make some exceptions. Not often, but there have been exceptions that we've made that have actually made projects better. I'll just say this, that I don't know if you all have had a chance to drive by this site or not and see it. Melvin, and I had not been back there before, so I drove there last weekend and drove down Melvin Bennett, and it's actually a very interesting street because you drive down it and it's almost like it's in its own little world, away from traffic, away from the hubbub of the town. It's quiet, it's got large lots, it's got nice trees. It's just a nice drive, and so as I began to think of the options for this property, I began to think of the options. One is putting a commercial project at the front of the property and keeping 2 houses along Melvin Bennett. And I thought, that really, to me, has value because it does protect Melvin Bennett by having 2 larger lots and larger homes there, as opposed to 4 smaller homes, which would really be out of place in that neighborhood in my mind. So I just throw that up for consideration, that every project has its own individual circumstances and not to get locked into sticking with the plan because it's the plan. I think when you take a look at the project and say, does it help protect the neighborhood? Does it hurt the neighborhood? Does it help the town? Does it hurt the town? And this is one I think reasonable people can argue either side. I think there's value in both positions.
Mr. Bustos.
Yeah, and as I said last month, we had residents who've lived on that street and in that area for over 40 years who have a vested interest in that neighborhood. And they came and they want 2 houses facing Melvin Bennett rather than the entire lot being turned into 4 or 5 homes, which will increase the traffic on Melvin Bennett because traffic from residential lots will not go to Bowman Road. And I think the 2 houses and the business right beside, there's a bank, there's Black Forest Motors, and now I think they had, there was a gentleman who came last month and said he was a chiropractor and interested in an office there. And I agree with Bob, the comprehensive plan is something that we follow and we try to follow it very closely, but every once in a while there comes a project that just doesn't fit. And so we have to change things, and to change one lot to commercial to protect the neighborhood character of Melvin Bennett, I think is a good thing to do.
Can I add one more thing?
You may.
Just for clarification too, you've heard several people saying about driving. I also drove several times down both Melvin Bennett and down Bowman on the other side, and you've probably passed it many times and didn't even realize it's basically this area is mostly kudzu right now, I think, is what you would say. But I can't imagine someone with the Black Forest Motors there, and then the other side, I think, has something else. I can't imagine someone wanting to build a home facing Bowman. So I guess the idea is that these would all face Melvin Bennett. So that's why we're all saying this is a spot where we would not be changing the zone of an entire parcel of land. We would be changing part of it. So I guess it goes half against the comprehensive plan because the residential part would stay residential. The part that faces Bowman that's very commercial at this point would be what would be changed. So just want to make sure everybody knows that it is an unusual situation.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Whitley.
Well, one thing, I initially voted in favor of this last month, but since then I have come to a realization: one, I don't want to change the comprehensive plan to vote to do that. Two, where this property line is drawn is approximately 85 feet along the sideline of 1232, and I met with the Rudys and spoke to them, and I guess it comes down to, would I want this in my backyard? And would any of us want this in our backyards? And I think the answer is no. I don't think any of us would want this in our backyards. And so I cannot vote in favor of this at this time.
Mr. Shanto?
Yeah, just one last thing. If you look at this map, you can see Bowman Road at that area is a 2-lane road. And now it does get wider as you get closer to Chuck Dolly. But at that area, it's a 2-lane road. And for anybody who drives that in the morning, it's a disaster. I mean, it's a nightmare. It's already so congested in that area there that if you put commercial there and draw more cars, more commercial people to that area, I think it's going to really probably bring it to a lower level than it already is. I go there all the time, and I can see that level of congestion. And I just think if we put something like that there, it's just going to overwhelm Bowman area.
Yes.
Yeah, last month I spoke about the concern with that back property, the dividing line between the commercial and the residential portion. If you look at 1232 lot, the upper right corner where the back and the side meet, I don't see why you couldn't pivot that property line off that corner and not have commercial next door to residential. I mean, that seems to me a pretty reasonable compromise. I don't know if the neighbors would like that. I just think to expect that this AB zoning covers a lot of things, and they don't know what's going to be there, and they're right to be opposing this, and I agree with Ms. Whitley on that.
Do we have people from the public who would like to address this at this point? If you've signed up and you'd like to speak, please come forward. And as you know, please state your name and address, and you have 2 minutes.
My name is Terry Orvig. My address is 1334 Bluebird, but my property also goes to Melvin Bennett. My rear driveway is catty corner to this property. Right. I sold real estate in this town for a long time. I retired 10 years ago. I was doing over $10 million a year in business, and I was paying over $100,000 a year in taxes. So I understand real estate, and I think a little better than some of you guys. Commercial and residential doesn't mix. And you're going to cripple the 2 houses on either side of this because this is going to come up into their backyard. It's not going to stop at the backyard. So their children and grandchildren are going to be in a parking lot, and this guy doesn't even know what he's going to build. 24-hour, gas station or coffee shop, it doesn't matter. It's not going to be a good fit. You yourself said it's a unique little neighborhood. I mean, I'm lucky to live there. It's in the middle of Mount Pleasant. Nobody knows where it is. Yesterday, I didn't even start my
Some of us do.
Well, yeah. I grew up with Gary and Jim and voted for you, and I voted for the mayor. We just prayed about making the right decision. And I wanted to point out just a couple of decisions we've made just recently. I know I've only got 2 minutes. But if you drive down Coleman Boulevard, we've planted live oak trees in the middle of a brand new sidewalk, 3 feet from brand new buildings. And if you look across the street, you'll see what a live oak tree does to concrete and asphalt. This wasn't a good idea. You go down Mathis Ferry, we're planting live oak trees underneath live oak trees. It doesn't make any sense. You go down Whipple Road, we've strung them down directly underneath the power lines. Now, that last windstorm that came through, a live oak tree knocked out the power in our neighborhood. So they came out and repaired it the next day, a live oak tree directly behind my house started a fire in the live oak tree. I called I called the fire department.
Sir, please finish up.
We need to start making some better decisions than we're doing in this town. And this commercial property, I know what I'm talking, I sold commercial and residential. It's not a good fit. Nobody's gonna build houses on the front of Bowman. Our backyard's back up. We've got a buffer there. And the last time I was here speaking, I got a flippant answer from one of the councilmen that it's been bought, it's gonna be developed. Fine, develop it, but use its intended purpose.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Next.
Hi, I'm Amy Rudy, 1232 Melvin Bennett. I was originally going to talk about the comp plan and how we've been talking about this narrative, new leadership, new direction. There's actually an open house coming up in the coming weeks where we get to chat about those things. And, you know, campaign promises were made, one of those being, you know, stick to the comprehensive plan. That's what we need to do. And so obviously changing this would be the opposite, and campaign promises would be broken. But I also just want to kind of talk about the fact that it doesn't matter how long someone's lived there. We all live on Melvin Bennett, and we all have a say in this community. We're all residents of Mount Pleasant. Every single person, every resident that lives adjacent to this property is strongly opposed to rezoning this as AB. Every single one of them. There's like 2 folks down the street that oppose, that are in favor of this. Everyone else around this property opposes, and I just want to make that clear so that everyone's aware. In addition to that, we've seen the plans for 4 houses. Mr. Askins has shown us that. There will be a fence along the back line of Bowman. There will be a retention pond also in between the 4 small houses that would go on this land, and I'm not sure if any of you guys have seen that, but it would be great if you guys would ask to see those plans, because it's not something that doesn't fit into this neighborhood. It's something that absolutely does. And you're protecting the neighborhood with that fence extension all the way to where Black Forest sits. So I'm asking you guys today to please vote against rezoning this. And if we're going to have to vote against the comprehensive plan, not to vote in favor of changing it. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you. Next.
You've all seen me before. My name is Larry Haig. I live at 1318 Bluebird Drive, which is right straight across the street from this property. I've been there about 20 years. Never had any more of a wait than 30 seconds to get out onto Chuck Valley Boulevard, so traffic is not a problem. I don't care what they say. My concern is that the comprehensive plan on page 62, and you all have a copy, basically says that you're at 25% density for low-density residential in the city, and your goal is 30%. And that applies to medium density and high density and education. The next paragraph down says the commercial property in Mount Pleasant is secure for the next 10 years. So why do we need to rezone this? If you need to rezone it, there's a couple other options, actually. There's a limited office district. If Tim says he's going to put a nice chiropractic office there, that would fit perfectly. Or an office professional district zoning, which would also fit perfectly for that. So I would prefer 4 houses. The main reason is because that side of the street floods terribly during our big storms. The 2 properties directly east of that become retention ponds. We need more retention ponds on that side of the street, and that would take care of it. That's my 2 cents worth.
Thank you. Next. Oh. Yes, sir.
Paul Taylor. Live at 1336 Bluebird Drive, Mount Pleasant.
right off of Melvin Bennett, front of my house on 1336 Bluebird. I strongly support how they're trying to develop this land. It's reasonable. It's the right thing to do. No one wants to build a house on Bowman Road. I mean, the traffic is horrendous there. I mean, they go zoom, zoom by. Putting 2 houses on Melvin Bennett is a lot better than having 5 or 6 houses in there. Most of the people, well, not most, but a lot of the people that live in there come the opposite way from getting out onto Chuck Dolly from Melvin Bennett through my lot, through my driveway. As a matter of fact, one of the people that spoke up here tonight, he does not generally go that way. He goes through my lot to avoid the traffic to get out on Chuck Dolly. I have 2 small grandchildren. They play in the driveway. I don't want any more traffic there than we can get. The right thing to do is to put the commercial lot over there. It would draw a lot less traffic. It's on Bowman Road, and 2 houses, and hopefully the 2 houses won't have 6 cars per house, as it appears to be in Mount Pleasant anymore. But I urge you to reconsider, to think about this and do the right thing. I know that I don't know about comprehensive plan and that kind of thing, but this is reasonable. The guy that's developing it has done everything he can to work with the community.
Sir.
To work with the community and get this thing right. And many of the community members are supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
My name is Edward Hannibal, and I own Black Forest Import Service directly next to the project. We've been there 20-plus years. It takes a lot to develop in Mount Pleasant and to do things the right way. To come before you, I did it 20-some years ago. It was just as hard then. There's a talk last meeting about being good neighbors. Mr. Owens brought that up. I want to address a white elephant in the room, and that is the back of the Rudy's property is a very large structure that was built with no permit, a shed, probably 1,000+ square feet, not utilizing proper setbacks. It abuts right up to my property line. I'm 1342, so the back of his section. Over the winter, I noticed that there was some dumping behind that shed onto my lot. So I'm bringing it up in this meeting because I feel that one of the reasons there's so much opposition from the Rudy's is because of the shed that was illegally constructed. And that needs to be brought out in the open. So I do support the commercial 1-acre structure facing Bowman. It makes perfect sense. It's logical. Taking 1 house on that property, taking it down, keeping the live oaks, and having 2 houses makes perfect sense. I don't live in Moss Park, but I appreciate Moss Park being there. We've been very good neighbors the 20+ years we've been there. I think all of you know where we are, and I just want to leave it at that. It's very concerning to me how this has developed. Mr. Askins has spent a lot of time coming. We've come to these meetings, and it needs to be put on the table. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Sybil Knoll, and I live at 1330 Bluebird Drive. Hi, Gary. My husband and I have lived in Moss Park for 42 years. I grew up in Mount Pleasant. I'm now 70 years old. I hope to die there in my home and move on to a better place. We are supporting Mr. Atkins' proposal to build 2 homes on Melvin Bennett Road. because of the large oak tree that sits on that property. It's been there since I was a little girl. I watched it grow. Also, there are other oak trees there that are very important to our clean air. Restricted business on Bowman Road is going to happen whether we like it or not. I've seen this town change and change and change, and it's okay. I accept change, but in the right way. And we believe this plan will protect our neighborhood and our property value at the same time. Please consider the safety of our children and traffic flow. Melvin Bennett is a dead-end road. Thus, they go through Paul Taylor's driveway when they can't get out. This enables us to keep Crime Watch enforced. And of the 8 homes that are very, very close, and mine is the one, I'm at 1330. I am very close, can see everything that goes on, hears everything that goes on there, and have known all those neighbors all my life. And I would really love to have 2 houses on Melvin Bennett. And if you decide to do a business on Bowman Road, that's fine too. Tim has promised that there will be office buildings, low lighting, lots of fences, and lots of shrubbery to help us. We also have a business on the corner, which worked with us many, many years ago to put up a wall and to also give us shrubbery. Of the 8 houses that are directly affected by this, 6 houses are for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. I am a resident of Moss Park. I have lived in Mount Pleasant most of my adult life. I am in favor of Mr. Askins' rezoning on Bowman Road. I would also like to speak on his behalf because I think in many ways he's been slandered. And from my experience and the experience of the various neighbors that do approve this, there was a petition put out that the impression was the entire parcel was going to be rezoned commercial, which was incorrect. I walked neighborhood to neighborhood, door to door, and spoke with many neighbors that had signed this petition that were confused and unsure and realized they had signed something that was opposing the complete rezoning, not understanding that it was going to be divided in half. So I think there were people that didn't come tonight that do support this. I would also like to speak on behalf of Mr. Atkins because he has made himself available, able to answer questions, emails, phone calls. So if for any reason he was disparaged, I stand behind him, and he has done nothing but try. I appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak? Yes, ma'am. Name and address in 2 minutes, please.
Hi, I'm Denise May. I'm at 1324 Bluebird Drive, directly across from this property. I was in favor of the rezoning until I did a little bit more research on what AB means, meaning that there could be a bar, gas station stuck right there. Another item that I was not aware of is that on Melvin Bennett, the first property on the left, it's a little farmhouse, is actually zoned commercial right now. So if they wanted to turn that over and do something commercial with that property, there are 2 properties in between the property in question. And my fear is that it sets a precedence that all of Melvin Bennett would then go commercial. The oak trees, I believe, are protected, and they would be protected whether it gets rezoned or not. And I thought there were supposed to be 5 houses there, and I later learned that it was going to be 4. If it is rezoned, I'm against the AB clarification, and if he has promised to do office, then I would, if it has to be that, then it should be zoned OP with proper fencing and maybe like Leland Cypress boundaries protecting us from the parking in the rear, because I believe that he would have to have all the parking in the rear facing Melvin Bennett. That's it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? Yes, sir.
Sorry, move a little slow. I found out the other day I got gout, so
My name is Sean Rudy. I live at 1232 Melvin Bennett. First, there's a lot of lies and stuff that's being said. One, building and zoning already said he can only put 4 houses on this property. Not 5, not 6. Building and zoning already said 4. These 4 houses, he has plans for it. Yet he's yet to show you people what he's going to plan. There's 2 driveways on both sides. Retention pond in the back on the Bowman Road side, which Mr. Taylor said traffic already zooms up and down. So why do you want business there to have traffic zoom up and down and make it worse? The 4 houses will face inside to the green zone. The garages will be on the back. So actually, it would give us more privacy with the 4 houses. I implore you, I asked him to show you this map, because he has it. And the lies by the neighbors saying, oh, it's going to be 5, and the lies by the neighbors, it's going to be 6, it's nothing but lies. You people in the last election told us, we will follow the comprehensive plan. We heard you. We will not change the view out your front or backyards. We did our part and voted you in. Now I'm asking you to do your part and stand behind what you said to us. Like I said, as far as the Black Forest goes, he's also supposed to have an 8-foot concrete barrier that separates residential and business. He doesn't have a concrete barrier behind my yard. So as far as his attack on me, we'll build an 8-foot high barrier. It's concrete because that's what the building and zoning said you're supposed to do, and he hasn't yet to do it yet. As far as these other neighbors spreading lies and saying this petition, well, this petition is nothing but fake, because we have members here tonight who were opposed this, who shows on his petition that they're for this. And, as far as these check marks that he's put out there on this other petition, he has a check mark for a piece of wood, a part that's just nothing but a pile of wood and a fencing. I'm sorry, do you want me to grab a piece of wood and show it that he's in denial of it? Come on, let's use some common sense. That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I believe that's all that wanted to speak on this particular issue. One more. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Louise Taylor, Ouija, at 1336 Bluebird. And I've never done this before, and I'm scared to death, but I'm going to do it tonight. I just wanted to add one more thing that I heard today, and I'm not sure if I even understand it correctly. I'm sure y'all do. But my understanding is that there are deed restrictions on the commercial property that go further to specify what cannot be built there. And those include things like a bar or a gas station, which is a lot of the concern maybe about people who are wanting y'all to deny Mr. Askin's proposal. As far as the traffic on Melvin Bennett Road going out to Chuck Dolly, I'm retired, I sleep late, I run around Mount Pleasant the rest of the day and into the night. If you try to get out of that intersection, especially when school's let out and there's school buses, it is, in order to make a left-hand turn or a right-hand turn, if you turn right and you want to go left on Bowman, you can't get across 3 lanes. If you turn left, people are very kind. They'll stop and let you out, but that's dangerous. And I can't understand why someone would say the traffic there is not a problem. So my solution to it is, praise God, we own the property behind us. So we cut through that property that we rent to the Stewart Nursery, and we cut through it to avoid. And I never put myself in a position of being at that intersection anymore, because even if I'm going down into Mount Pleasant, I'll just go to the light. It's safer. It's more time efficient. So Paul and I both, as you know, support his proposal, and we think that it's the most reasonable thing to do.
Thank you. That's 2 minutes. Appreciate it. You did very well. Thanks. Do it again sometime. That was good for a first time. Thank you. Is there anyone else here from the public to address this? All right, Council, we have before us a motion to deny.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a comment, please?
Sure, yeah.
Thank you. It's very obvious that we have a divided community in Moss Park. These folks, they bought their property many years ago, 40 to 60 years ago, and in hopes that they would raise their families and live their lives in an area, in this is zoned R1, large lots, off of Chuck Dolly Boulevard, Bowman Road. And I also want to add that Mr. Atkins did a good job in trying to come up with a compromise. But it's, at the end of the day, this is a decision that we have to make as a council on behalf of our citizens. And it's important that, you know, from my perspective, that we abide by the comprehensive plan that's in place, that hasn't changed. And it's unfortunate that this portion has come before us prior to the zoning request. But these folks, they expect us to continue to abide by the comp plan. And for that reason, I will be supporting the comp plan in this effort. Thank you.
Ms. Whitley?
I just have a question of clarification for Mr. Pagliarini. We are not allowed to condition zoning on anything. So, so promises of deed restrictions or promises of what will be done to the property are actually not enforceable by the town. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Bustos.
I would just like to say, it's laudable that everyone wants to follow the comprehensive plan, but the comprehensive plan isn't infallible. And what we were elected to do was use our good sense. And I said many times through the years that we need more commercial and we need fewer residences, because residences create more traffic. So I think it's an error to simply, and it's kind of a crutch to say, I'm going to follow a comprehensive plan no matter what, because it's just like the zero tolerance thing means zero using your mind. This is one of those where we have to make a decision, and it has to be based not on the comprehensive plan and following it blindly. I think it's one that we have to say or think and vote for what is best for the community. Thank you.
Ms. Landing?
I received an email just this afternoon. Did everybody else receive an email with pictures from Mr. Askins? Okay, so we don't have that picture, I guess, to show, but the reason I'm bringing it up is that my understanding, and I did read carefully, and thank you very much, Mamie Rudy, for your very detailed and excellent writing that you sent us. I looked, and one of the big concerns was how much this commercial, the AB, would come down onto the side of their property, would run along their property line approximately 85 feet, I believe. And that was one of the big concerns that the Rudys had, understandably, because now you're dealing with something commercial that's literally in your backyard. I realize this is not what our decision is about tonight, but I think it does affect it. In the picture that is done, because of buffer zones that are required and because of trees where they are, it literally took the whole line back flush with the back of their, did everybody see that? It took it back to almost flush with the back of the property. So that basically turning the building facing more catty corner made it more where there was nothing but trees and, I don't know, I could pass this down if that's what everybody wants, but that's what it looks like, where the line that you see comes to the back of where the shed is, actually, because there's another picture that shows the exact location of the shed. And if anybody's seen it, then you don't need to see it. Anyway, my point in that is to say, I wonder if we were dealing with this as a only to the back of the property rather than 85 feet into the property line, if it would be a different subject. In other words, if there's a way that if we voted this down tonight, is it possible that they come back with a slightly different request, slightly different, moving the line, essentially?
My understanding is, though, if we vote this down, this item, number 7A, then the other dies as well. And I'll just tell you what I plan to do. I think we should do this together the way we've done every other property and approve this tonight and then defer the zoning so that we do it like we do every other application, and we do them both at the same time and put them on the same track, whether it's up or down, but they need to be together because the process has gotten a little out of whack here. Is there any other discussion before we vote on this? Yes, sir, Mr. Bremer.
Yeah, a lot of good discussion, a lot of good points made. I would just say that we're not here tonight to vote on a project. We're not here to talk about uses. We're not even here at this point to talk about zoning. The question with this item really is this part of the parcel more appropriate for a commercial use, or is it more appropriate for a residential use? That's really what we're talking about here. If I'm looking at this map and looking at all the AB2 surrounding this along Bowman Road, 10 years ago, that wasn't the case. For better or for worse, previous councils have made decisions, zoning decisions, that have made the map look the way it looks today. We've got more high density in this area. We've got hotels in this area. So the question becomes, is this part of the property better suited for people living there with the traffic and all the other impacts of high density development? Or is this part of the property more appropriate for some sort of commercial use? That's really the question we're faced at this point.
All right, thank you. Mr. Owens.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. You know, my position earlier wasn't to speak on the comprehensive plan as a zero tolerance. It was to state that this property for the last 60 years has been zoned residential. And so much so that our comprehensive plan continues to show it as an R1. It's part of the Moss Park development. It's a parcel that was contiguous to Moss Park and incorporated into Moss Park, and the ingress-egress was off of Melvin Bennett Road and would continue to be off of Melvin Bennett Road, whether they put 2 houses or 4 houses in its place. Their access would still be Melvin Bennett Road. That would also eliminate some of the traffic on Bowman Road. So this doesn't really have anything to do with a zero tolerance. It has to do with making the right decisions for our community based on what our current comprehensive plan indicates, which is that this parcel is and has been incorporated in the town of Mount Pleasant, more particularly with Moss Park subdivision. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, so we have a motion on item number A7, which is to deny. And so I guess we should probably call the roll. So we will proceed to vote. So all in favor of the motion to deny will be voting aye. Don't do it now because it is a motion to deny. So a yes vote is to deny, a no vote is not to deny. Yes, ma'am. Clerk, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bustos.
No.
Mr. Bustos votes no. Mr. Cunane.
Aye.
Mr. Cunane votes yes. Ms. Landing.
No.
Ms. Landing votes no. Mr. O'Rourke.
No.
Mr. O'Rourke votes no. Mr. Owens.
Aye.
Mr. Owens votes yes. Mr. Santos.
Aye.
Mr. Santos votes yes. Ms. Whitley.
Aye.
Ms. Whitley votes yes. Mr. Brimmer.
No.
Mr. Brimmer votes no. Mayor Haney.
No.
Mayor Haney votes no.
So by my count, it's a 5-4 no vote, so it is not denied. So let me ask a quick question. That means then that item B5 under old business may be considered tonight, or it may be deferred, whatever, or denied,
Well,
whatever we choose.
Well, there first needs to be a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Are we going to discuss this again? All right.
Yeah, I just want to say one
Sure.
more thing. Again, I think Jim hit the nail on the head. You know, when we campaigned, we all talked about the comprehensive plan. Every one of us talked about the comprehensive plan. Here we have an opportunity to do as we told the citizens we were going to do, and it appears it's not going to happen tonight. You know, I think, like I said, since we already have this, the group out there right now that's looking at the comprehensive plan, I don't think we need to be changing things now until they come back to us, unless it's something that's really urgent to do, until they come back with their recommendations so that we can see how it fits with the community. But I know one thing, I campaigned on abiding by the comprehensive plan, and that's why I'm voting the way I'm voting tonight.
Any other discussion? Are we prepared to vote? All right, the motion is to approve. Would you call the roll, please, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Coonane?
No.
Mr. Coonane votes no. Ms. Landing?
We're not approving the comprehensive plan change?
This is a yes vote. It does approve this change, which keeps item 5 alive.
Comprehensive plan.
Okay, isn't that the opposite of what you just voted? I'm confused now, okay.
Yes, you would vote the opposite.
Right.
If you want to approve, a
Right.
vote would be an,
Right, I'm sorry, that was confusing, yes.
all right. So that is a yes vote? Got it.
Ms. Landing votes yes. Mr. O'Rourke?
Yes.
Mr. O'Rourke votes yes. Mr. Owens?
No.
Mr. Owens votes no. Mr. Santos?
No.
Mr. Santos votes no. Ms. Whitley?
No.
Ms. Whitley votes no. Mr. Brimmer?
Yes.
Mr. Brimmer votes yes. Mr. Bustos?
Yes.
Mr. Bustos votes yes. Mayor Haney?
Yes.
Mayor Haney votes yes.
So the motion is approved by a 5-4 vote, so we will still have discussion about the zoning when we get to item 5B.
First reading, ordinance number 18016, an ordinance to amend the Town of Mount Pleasant Comprehensive Plan 2009 through 2019, 2014 update, future land use map pertaining to an approximately .93 acre tract of land comprised of portions of 2 parcels, described as follows. An approximately .03 acre portion of an approximately .11 acre tract of land located on Melvin Bennett Road, identified by TMS number 56002000039. Depicted on the plat recorded by the Charleston County ROD Office in Plat Book CE, page 190, and an approximately .9 acre portion of an approximately 1.51 acre tract of land located at 1236 Melvin Bennett Road, identified by TMS number 56002000019, depicted on a plat recorded by the Charleston County ROD Office in Plat Book BA, page 179, by changing the land use recommendation low density neighborhood commercial.
Believe this moves us to section B, old business. Mr. Ulma, if you will move us on through.
Next 2 items are final reading for the annexation and zoning of town-owned property at Lieben Road and Highway 17 North. And this site was purchased by the town and is being studied for future use by Public Services Department. The current zoning in the county is community commercial, and the planning committee recommended approval of the annexation. The
Motion
first
to
item.
approve.
We have a motion to
Second.
approve. We have a second. Is there any discussion? Is there anyone here to address this? Mr. Bustos stepped out, but all in favor of the motion to approve item B1, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimous.
Final reading, ordinance number 18025, an ordinance providing for the annexation of approximately 5.32 acre tract of land owned by the Town of Mount Pleasant, located at 3745 Highway 17 North, identified by TMS number 61400000033, and depicted as Lot 1 on a plat recorded by the Charleston County ROD Office in Plat Book L10, page 138.
All right. Item number 2, please.
That was the associated zoning for the property to PI2.
Yes. Do we have a motion?
Motion to
Approve
approve.
second reading.
We have a motion to approve, and we have a second. Is there any discussion? Is there anyone here to address? All in favor of the motion to approve signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes.
Final reading, ordinance number 18026, an ordinance to zone PI2, Public Institutional 2 District, an approximately 5.32 acre tract of land owned by the Town of Mount Pleasant, located at 3745 Highway 17 North, identified by TMS number 61400000033, and depicted as Lot 1 on a plat recorded by the Charleston County ROD Office in Plat Book L10, page 138.
Yes, sir. Number 3.
Items 3 and 4 relate to a requested annexation and town zoning for an existing subdivision known as Linen Place, which was developed under the county's jurisdiction. You're familiar with the general location. There have been questions as you see the layout of what the opportunities are for additional development in this subdivision. The areas that are not shown as lots are included as homeowners' open space, retaining ponds, easements, and wetlands. The future land use map recommendation is community conservation, and we'll be looking at that designation as we move forward with the overall comp plan. The property is zoned and was done as a planned development district in the county, and the annexation was accomplished through the process that allows the petition by the property owners. The Planning Committee recommended approval of the annexation 3-0. Planning Commission recommended approval of the zoning request 8-0, and the Planning Committee supported that rezoning change 3-0.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second? And we have a second. And let me ask, as discussion, this is built out. We do not anticipate any more building in this. We'll just be gaining residents of the town of Mount Pleasant.
That's correct, Mayor.
Is there anyone here to address this from the public?
There was one gentleman signed up to speak, sir. Michael Sharon?
We're good.
Jeff.
Any council discussion, Mr. Santos?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, as I said last time when this came up, I'm against the 75% method of annexation. I think we need to be a little bit more clear on our agendas so the public understands that this is not 100% annexation, that we're actually, there's 25% of the folks that live there that are against it. And I've never been in favor of anything but 100% annexation. So I'll be voting against the annexation.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, Mr. Bustos.
Yeah, just to be sure, and I appreciate Mr. Santos' stance, but 100% is not required. So it was 75% method.
Right.
So I don't see any reason to tell everyone that it's not 100% because that's not what's required.
Mr. Mayor, can I?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, because it's the truth. I mean, you're making it sound like everybody agreed to annex in and 25% of the people didn't. Now, if you happen to be one of those 25%, any of you out there that did not want to annex into a municipality and 75% of your neighbors dragged you in against your will, to me, I don't think that's right. I think this is America, and as long as you're paying your taxes, you should be able to decide whether you want to annex into a municipality or not. So I think they should have the right to know that this is not 100%, that 25% of the folks decided not to, that's all. And I think we need to let them know that when we're just making these decisions.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? All right. I believe the motion was to approve the annexation of item B3. All in favor of the motion to approve, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion passes.
Final reading, ordinance number 18027, ordinance providing for the annexation of approximately 19.15 acre tract of land located near Hamlin Road, identified by TMS numbers 578-0000049 through 050, 578-0000052, 578-0000477 through 501, 578-0000503, 578-0000506 through 531, 578-0000569 through 571, and depicted on plats recorded by the Charleston County ROD Office in Book L9, page 487 to 488, Book LD, page 332 to 333, and Book S12, page 161.
Thank you. Item number 4 is, I believe, the zoning for what we just annexed.
Yes, Mayor.
I move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. We have a second. Do we have any discussion? Anyone here from the public to address this issue? Are we prepared to vote, council? All in favor of the motion to approve, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes.
Final reading, ordinance number 18028, an ordinance to zone R4 medium-density residential district in approximately 19.15 acre tract of land located near Hamlin Road, identified by TMS numbers 578-0000049 through 050, 578-0000052, 578-0000477 through 501, 578-0000503, 578-0000506 through 531, 578-0000569 through 571, and depicted on plats recorded by the Charleston County ROD Office in Book L9, page 487 to 488, Book L10, page 332 to 333, and Book S12, page 161.
This brings us to item 5, which is back to the Melvin Bennett Road property. And I would just implore council, let's do this the right way. I would be looking for a motion to defer this so that what was just voted on earlier about the comp plan and the zoning can happen together, second reading at the same time, the way every other property is done.
So
If
moved.
Second.
We have a motion, and we have a second.
And there's a motion to defer until next month.
To defer, yes, thank you. We have a motion to defer, and we have a second. That would put this item and the earlier one, as you know the number, I believe it was A7, on final reading in the same month. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion to defer, please signify by saying.
I have one
Oh,
quick
I'm
thing.
sorry.
I'm sorry, I was slow.
Right.
I would just ask that maybe a little bit more effort be to bring the parties together, because I definitely feel we heard really different things tonight. I don't think anybody can deny that. And also what we received in an email looks like it answers a lot of the questions. So I don't know if what was in that email, which was several different pictures, was clear to everybody. But it definitely moved that line back to where it was flush with the back of the Rudy's property, which would be much more respectful of their privacy. So I would ask that that be available next month.
All right, any other discussion? All in favor of the motion to defer, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
No.
All right, please call the roll.
Ms. Landing.
The motion is to defer.
Aye.
Ms. Landing votes yes. Mr. O'Rourke.
Aye.
Mr. O'Rourke votes yes. Mr. Owens.
No.
Mr. Owens votes no. Mr. Santos.
No.
Mr. Santos votes no. Ms. Whitley.
Aye.
Ms. Whitley votes yes. Mr. Brimmer.
Aye.
Mr. Brimmer votes yes. Mr. Bustos.
Aye.
Mr. Bustos votes yes. Mr. Canane.
No.
Mr. Canane votes no. Mayor Haney.
Aye.
Mayor Haney votes yes.
The motion passes. So both, that item is deferred until next month. So we will be discussing those both at the same time. Mr. Holm, I believe that's all on the planning?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
I do have one question.
Yes.
Will both those items for final reading come back to council, or will they be going back to planning committee? Just council,
At
correct?
this point, council, unless as chair or someone requests you'd like to put it on planning committee.
No, I think come back to council's fine.
This moves us to item 9, committee reports. Do we need to take a 5-minute break, or do we want to move on through this?
Let's go.
Let's go.
Keep going.
Keep going. Okay, we'll keep going. Committee reports. Let's get to, I guess, B, which would be bids and purchases.
Yes, sir. Bids and purchases met on April 30th, 2018. The committee unanimously approved the following recommendations. Approval of contract with Gulfstream Construction Company in the amount of $7,987,152.76 to construct all work on the Sneed Farm Drainage Improvement Project.
Thank
Also
you.
approved the contract change order with Wolpert in the amount of $481,730 to perform additional consulting services for construction admin and oversight of the Sneed Farm Drainage Improvements Project. Approval to enter into negotiations, and if successful, contract with Stubbs and Muldrow Heron Architects to provide professional services for the design of interior renovations of the Park West pool restrooms and R.L. Jones Center storefront and lobby area. This concludes my report.
Thank you very much.
Ma'am?
Speak up.
Oh, sorry. I got a sore throat.
We'll turn your mic up. Economic Development Committee, Mr. Brimmer,
Thank you, Mayor.
and speak up.
Yes, sir. Hi, Sally. Mr. Sam Scarden, who is the One Region Project Director, provided a brief presentation on the One Region strategy, which is a plan to unify the region to become globally competitive. Mr. Scarden provided updates on the implementation of the strategy and discussed Mount Pleasant's role within the region. The committee also discussed the town's strategy for the recruitment of businesses, which Ms. Landing brought forward and generated some good discussion on. And we also sort of got to the point of coming to the idea, with Mr. Crosby's help, to perhaps put together a retreat, an economic development retreat sometime this summer, bringing a lot of partners together to actually try to get to some specific actions the town can take to move our economic development strategy forward. So that is currently in the planning process as well. That is the Economic Development Report.
Great, thank you very much. Education Committee did not meet. Finance Committee, Mr. O'Rourke.
The Finance Committee met, and under new business, you'll be asked to consider a recommendation for an ordinance to approve the issuance of stormwater bonds. And The committee had vetted this and unanimously voted for it, so we will take this up under new business. Also, a few other things that were discussed. There was a presentation by Marcy to explain a strategy to formalize a 5-year financial plan to look a little bit further than 1 year. It was very well received by the committee, and anxiously awaiting that work. So that was approved, and we'll be doing that. The next thing we talked about was the budget, and there were some items in the budget that the committee recommended, although not unanimously on all of these things. It was brought up to approve all the adjustments from the different budget committees, also a $50,000 grant to the Housing for All group for Mount Pleasant, an additional $250,000 for fire department, and a reduction in the community investments by $43,000 from what was originally budgeted of $200,000. It was a very lean year for us with that, but it's certainly understandable why. And then to conclude our meeting, we went into executive session to discuss a contractual matter relating to the purchase of property. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Fire Committee, Mr. Bremer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In Fire Committee, we started off with a presentation by Amanda Knight, who is our town emergency manager, and she provided an overview regarding emergency management projects. Some upcoming events will focus on earthquake drills, emergency evacuation drills, the EOC enhancements, and emergency management accreditation. We then moved into a presentation by Fire Chief Mike Mixon, who provided a presentation of the department structure, call volume trends, the medical program, firefighting initiatives, and strategic planning. What followed there was a discussion regarding the fire department staffing. Mr. McCunane provided some standards, some national standards regarding staffing. And then if we had took a vote on the original motion of $675,000 to be added to this year's fire budget, that vote failed 3-1. There was a second motion by Mr. Owens for $250,000, which passed unanimously, and that's the money that Mr. O'Rourke was just referencing that is included in tonight's budget. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Human Resources, Mrs. Lanning.
Human Resources Committee met last week to discuss non-discrimination language in the town's policy. Currently, the ordinance for public assemblies and parades includes the terms sexual orientation and gender identity, in addition to the classes protected under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, which includes race, color, religion, gender, national origin, disability, age, and genetic information. We wish to replicate this verbiage in the town's policies on employment and fair housing. The Human Resource Guidelines will be updated with this change in the near future. At the meeting, we asked legal to prepare documentation addressing non-discrimination in fair housing practices for our consideration. And just so you know, part of the reason we didn't, we said in the future, is because we're currently already working on the guidelines related to ADA, American Disabilities Act. So we plan to have these dovetail so that we can update the wording all at the same time, probably in June. Thank you.
Thank you. Patriots Point Development Authority, I currently represent the town on that committee, on that board. We had a meeting and the board voted to give a 4-month forbearance to the Medal of Honor Foundation from July till November for them to attempt to perform on what they need to do to facilitate the moving of the road and the utilities. And that dovetails into that contract that I will be reporting on in the Transportation Committee when we get to that. But that's the most significant thing that came from the Patriots Point Development Authority. Planning, Mr. Bustos.
Thank you. I'm not usually given to long reports, but this is going to be somewhat of a lengthy report because we are now starting to get into items that require not only a meeting, but special meetings. And I want to thank the Planning Committee for all the work they're doing. These are some important things. To begin, we continued discussion regarding accessory dwelling units, ADUs, and short-term rental properties. Planning staff presented considerable background information about the existing zoning regulations, business license requirements, and taxation aspects of both ADUs and short-term rentals. definitions, contradictory provisions, enforcement, typical regulations imposed by other communities, and examples of ordinances from other jurisdictions were described. The committee requested staff to begin preparation of updated rules and regulations to allow but closely regulate both types of uses. Draft provisions and procedures will be prepared by staff and presented at a future committee. Continued discussion on a proposal to amend the vegetation and tree protection provisions of Chapter 156 of the Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinances. Planning staff reminded the committee members of the various changes to the ordinance which have been developed and discussed thus far. Staff then advised that they have revisited the goals which have been expressed in the past and offered several other changes for consideration. These included the addition of more road or street buffers, institution of a requirement for developments to include a fixed amount of natural open space areas, and a change to the process for subdivision and site plan submittals and review with an eye towards open space preservation. The committee expressed support for these new techniques and requested that staff prepare the actual regulations for review at an upcoming committee meeting. Continued discussion regarding the Urban Corridor Overlay District was deferred and will be discussed at a special committee meeting on May 9th at 9:30. Potential growth management plan was likewise deferred and will be a topic for the May 9th special committee meeting. We also discussed consideration of an intergovernmental agreement with Charleston County for enforcement of sign ordinances. The town administrator requested committee to approve to proceed with preparation of an agreement whereby the county's temporary sign regulations could be enforced by the land codes enforcement officer in coordination with county staff. The planning committee endorsed this effort for town administrator. And lastly, the planning staff advised that the next meeting of the Plan Forum Citizens Group would be May 1st. Staff reminded the committee members of the big issue topics still being discussed, like the urban corridor, bike pedestrian connector system and settlement communities, as well as a shift in focus to the long-range transportation plan element of the plan. Staff also indicated the forum would meet again on June 5th, followed by a community open house later that evening from 5 to 7. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Police, legal, and judicial did not meet. That brings us to public services. Mr. Owens again.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me, Sally? The committee approved the minutes from the April 3rd, 2018 meeting. There were two presentations given at the Public Services Committee. The first was titled Update on the Design of Edwards Royal Drainage Basins, and it provided an update on the status of the Old Village Drainage Improvement Project. Committee was informed of staff's dire desire to modify the original design to include the additions of a gravity-fed outfall at Queen Street instead of a larger pump station at Edwards Park. It is believed that this will increase the reliability of the system and will save the taxpayers dollars over the lifespan of the system. The committee directed the staff to proceed with this proposal. The second presentation was titled Update on the Distribution of Fully Automated Roll Carts, and it provided an overview of the Public Services Department's plan to replace 8,000 roll carts to support the utilization of the two fully automated garbage trucks and the town purchased as parts for the 2018 budget. This concludes my report.
Thank you very much. That moves us to recreation. Mr. Santos.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, we had a total of about 3 hours. We met with the soccer, lacrosse, football, Oceanside Academy, and others relating to the use of our fields. I want to take opportunity to thank our Director of Recreations, Mr. Steve Gergic, and Jimmy Millar and Matt Hansen for all of their hard work. can imagine what it's like getting all those groups together and making a decision on who's going to use fields at what time, where, and things like that. I think it was a yeoman's job, so I want to publicly thank you guys for all the hard work. I know you think I'm crazy when I bring these things to you, but you guys do a really good job of putting it all together. I appreciate it, and I know all of the recreation community appreciates it as well. So I do have a report, but I'll go ahead and submit it to the clerk.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Y'all had a special meeting too, I understand, right? Had to carry it over.
We had a special meeting, yes, we did. And
Thank you to the committee for doing that. I appreciate it. This brings us to the Transportation Committee. Several quick items among many other things that we discussed. One was we went into executive session to receive legal advice on a contractual matter involving the right-of-way exchange at Patriots Point regarding the Medal of Honor Museum. And that has been taken under advisement. And second, we spent a good deal of time and got a great report from our police chief about traffic management for special events at Boone Hall. I think that went very well. Going to try a few changes, do things a little bit differently. And the day afterwards, I met with Mr. McCray at Boone Hall, and he feels like we're all working together and we're on the same team. And I think we'll see a big change next time. And if everybody will just, drive sensibly as well, because we can't control any accidents that may happen. I also attended as a stakeholder, as you've seen in the press lately, the stakeholders meeting about the Highway 41 designs, and there's a public hearing coming up. And there is no leading design. There are several that make more sense because they would fit into the budget and accomplish the goal and reach the level of service that they're required to at that time, and that kind of narrows it down to 3 out of 10. But nothing becomes a leading design or leading prospect of that until we have more public input, and that's coming up next week. And somebody correct me if I'm wrong, it's on the 16th, not the 15th, it's on the 16th. At one time, it was put out that it would be on the 15th, and that's up at Park West. Waterworks Commission, Councilman Bustos, Councilman Owens, and I, and Mr. Brimmer, I'm not sure if you made that meeting at Waterworks, because I wasn't there for all of it, but we were well represented. They did their visioning and planning, mission statement, business plan, and just the level of communication between the town and Mount Pleasant Waterworks is great. We're all in this together. They need to know what our plans are about growth. We need to know what their capabilities are to meet capacity for the growth that's already in the books. And I'm just very proud of this council for the way we're working with them. That brings us to item O, Water Supply Committee. Mr. Bustos.
Yes, we have one action item that will be covered under council new business. And also, Mr. Duffy has extended to all council members a meeting in June or July with the Water Commission, followed by a tour of the facilities. So if anyone would like to do that, that's been offered. And I was remiss in that I thanked the committee during the planning report, and I didn't thank the planning staff who takes all our sometimes garbled guidance and turns it into ordinances and ideas. So thank you. I was remiss in not doing that, as well as Christiane. Thank you very much.
Great.
That's it.
That brings us to item 10, Administrator's Report. Mr. DeMora.
Thank you, Mayor. Announcing one opening, Culture, Arts, and Pride Commission. That's all I have, sir.
All right, thank you very much. Item number 11 on the agenda is council business. New business, item number 1 is first reading of an ordinance authorizing the issuance of not exceeding $10 million stormwater utility system revenue bond.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Is there anyone here to address this? Any discussion among council? All in favor of the motion to approve, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously.
First reading ordinance number 18040, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of a not exceeding $10 million stormwater utility system revenue bond, Series 2018 of the town of Mount Pleasant, South Carolina.
Item number 2 is approval of a contract amendment for the town administrator, the details of which were discussed in executive session as allowed by law in the last meeting.
Make a motion.
We have a motion to approve. We have a second. Is there any discussion? Were you able to get that, Madam Clerk? Okay. We have a motion to approve. We have a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the contract amendment with the town administrator as previously discussed, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. I guess you don't have to read that, do you?
No, sir.
Okay, there's nothing to read there. This moves us to Section B, which is old business. Final reading, an ordinance to amend Section 11406 of Chapter 114 Accommodations Fee, the Town of Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinances pertaining to the distribution of funds.
Move for final reading.
Second.
We have a motion to move for final reading and or to approve final reading and a second. Is there any discussion? Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, can you just, for the public, can you just describe or have somebody describe, just in a nutshell, what that is so they know?
Yes, sir. Happy to, Mr. Santos. What this does is it makes the town's ordinances governing the accommodations tax consistent with the state law, which is important.
Very good. Thank you.
Great. We have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes. Item C is executive session, legal and contractual, a contractual matter related to the possible purchase of property. And number 2 is personnel appointments to the Accommodations Tax Advisory Commission and to the Historical Commission. Is there a motion that we enter into executive session for the 2 purposes stated and listed in the agenda?
So moved.
We have a motion. We have a second. Is there any discussion? Before we vote, I will give this notice. Post-executive session, council may take action on any item listed on an executive session agenda or discussed in an executive session during a properly noticed meeting. All in favor of the motion to enter into executive session, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. We are in executive session.
You get that? Because I know you're never gonna get it.
Don't ever say never.
Who are we missing? Oh, there's Mr. Brimmer. All right, we have reconvened from executive session. No votes were taken, no action was taken. Is there a motion to result from the deliberations?
Yes, I make a motion in regard to the appointment of the Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee. We did not receive any new applications, but Ms. Sue Frost currently holds seat number 1 and is eligible and seeks reappointment. So I make a motion that we would nominate and appoint Ms. Sue Frost.
Is there a second? We have a nomination, we have a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the nomination of Mrs. Sue Frost to the ATAX Committee, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mrs. Frost is appointed. No other items from executive session, but we do have an item under D, final reading, an ordinance to adopt and appropriate a budget for the town of Mount Pleasant for fiscal year 2019, which is July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2019. Okay, Mr. Owens?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
does that include the 250,000 additional for the fire department?
Yes, it does.
Thank you. I'd just like to show two slides to show why this is a great move.
2 slides.
Yes, sir.
Will they be on our, I guess they'll be on our screens.
Kevin, it's a yes.
And
It's proud to move.
Martine, if you can't get it, it's okay. Okay. First slide shows our population on the top and the fire apparatus in town on the bottom. As you can see, we've gone basically down while the population went up. So all the banter and nonsense we've heard about this, I've had personal attacks at me and everything else. This is it right in front of you. We've had a drop in fire apparatus in town. So the original request would have been for a 10% increase in staffing. This is less, but it's a great move. Thank you for everyone who voted for it.
Thank you very much. So we have a motion for final reading on an ordinance to adopt the budget. We have a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Final reading ordinance number 18032, an ordinance to adopt and appropriate a budget for the town of Mount Pleasant for fiscal year 2019, July 1st, 2018 through June 30, 2019.
This brings us to item 12, adjourn. If there's no further business before this council, we stand adjourned.
Thank you, Mayor.